This is United Network News with Sunny Galt, Calen, Kimberly Gogan, and our field messengers from around the world. Here's today's real news.
Every day, it seems like all we hear about is climate change, CO2 emissions, net zero goals, and the big push for renewable energy. Everyone from governments to organizations is telling us to go green and cut down our carbon footprints. But as more information comes to light, it seems like there might be more to the story than we've been told.
Turns out, climate models aren't as spot on as we've been led to believe. They've been overestimating how quickly CO2 builds up in the atmosphere because nature is actually better at absorbing it than they thought. Who knew? They also assumed things like plants would stop absorbing CO2 at higher temperatures. But it turns out plants are way tougher than expected. In fact, a new study shows plants absorb 31% more CO2 than we thought. That's a pretty big miss for something so important. For years, we've heard the science is settled and that we need to act immediately or else. But this new data suggests we may have underestimated nature's ability to handle CO2. Maybe it's time to rethink dramatic policies like net zero. After all, if these models are built on shaky math, shouldn't we ask whether we're making world-changing decisions based on, bad guesses? Definitely something to think about.
One of my missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it this would be a dead planet. So I say not only is carbon dioxide good, it is essential, and it's a good thing that we are putting some more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because it was running low before we came along. I am firmly of the belief that the future will show that this whole hysteria over climate change was a complete fabrication.
What about the push for renewable energy sources like wind and solar? Are these solutions truly free of significant challenges? A study by the Fraser Institute points out some key obstacles. In Canada, most renewable energy comes from wind turbines, but their electricity output is still pretty low, even when the wind conditions are perfect. It takes hundreds or thousands of turbines and a lot of material like concrete and steel to match the output of a single coal, natural gas, or nuclear plant. Plus, connecting standalone turbines to the power grid requires lots of extra infrastructure, like power lines, which are often buried to keep a green look, adding to costs and environmental impact. Economist Doug Casey underscores the issue, noting that despite $5 trillion in subsidies for 20 years, hydrocarbons still account for 84% of global energy, while wind and solar contribute only a small fraction. Countries heavily invested in renewables, like Germany, are now facing higher electricity costs and less reliable power.
It's not that I don't think the climate is changing. That would be dumb considering it's been changing for the entire history of the planet. What I do think, though, is that even if we accept the claim that CO2 is responsible for any and all warming, the green energy transition will not only fail to solve the problem, but leave us with a worse off planet and society. Solar farms require 300 to 600 times more land than other energy sources, produce 300 times more toxic waste, and 40% of solar panel production is reliant on slave labor. Wind turbines aren't reusable or recyclable and are currently piling up in landfills. Plus, the cobalt production necessary for all this technology is not only environmentally harmful, but also reliant on slave labor. Additionally, the toxic waste from lithium, which is required for electric vehicles and batteries, look like something straight out of the Blade Runner movies. On top of all this, we're supposed to pretend like the production, transportation, and maintenance of all this green energy technology isn't completely reliant on oil.
No story is complete without its share of financial challenges. According to a new Oxfam report, up to $41 billion in World Bank climate finance for the past 7 years is missing in action. This issue raises serious concerns about transparency and accountability, especially since the World Bank is the largest provider of climate finance, responsible for more than half of all funds from multilateral development banks. Oxfam says it was extremely difficult to find and analyze even basic information about how these funds were spent, highlighting the need for clearer and more accessible reporting.
I saw a post on X and decided to do a bit of research on it, just to show you how ridiculous this whole net zero mania is. It turns out this was reported back in October. The World Bank has no records of up to $41 billion, and that it's due to poor record keeping. 40% of its climate funds dispersed between 2017 and 2023 are untraceable. These funds were meant to combat rising temperatures, devastating floods, and worsening droughts in low and middle-income nations. This audit was conducted by Oxfam. So 40% is gone with no records whatsoever about it. How it went, where it went, how was it spent, no one knows. Even with all this mess, governments continue to implement more of their net zero madness and might even demand more taxes in the future, like carbon taxes, which is currently happening in other countries.
All of this makes us wonder, are we really approaching these challenges in the smartest way? Maybe it's time to pause and take a closer look at the bigger picture instead of rushing into solutions that might create more problems. At the very least, we should be asking harder questions and demanding better transparency before making decisions that will shape our future.
Forest bathing, which started in Japan, is all about spending time in nature to give your physical and mental health a boost. UNN Field Messenger Amy breaks down what forest bathing is and how it works.
Field Messenger Amy reporting for UNN from the Frelinghuysen Arboretum located in Morristown, New Jersey. Let's welcome Rich Calen.
So I do what is called forest bathing. Forest bathing started in Japan in the 1980s. What they found was when you walk under the trees, as we're sitting under them today, but when you're under the trees, you are breathing in a chemical. The chemical is called phytoncides. Phytoncides are what the trees release to protect themselves. So they release it into the air constantly, and it helps them fight off insects or fungi or anything that's attacking the tree. We humans, when we breathe that in, have an incredibly powerful effect, a positive effect on us. Because we came out of the forest, when we breathe in the phytoncides, it helps us create NK cells, natural killer cells, which help us fight cancer. It also strengthens our immune system. So we get a benefit, and that's how the Japanese called it forest bathing, because when you walk under the trees or sit under the trees, as we're doing this morning, you're bathing in the phytoncides.
Wow.
It's such a great name. So it also is good for de-stressing you, lowering anxiety, improving depression. It basically gives you more creative spark, because when you're connecting to nature and remembering you're part of nature,
Right.
suddenly you have a different view of the world. You start to feel uplifted. And what I have people do is try to let their body select a tree. Go to the tree and introduce yourself, and let the tree introduce itself to you through your senses, through touch, through sight, through listening, through smell. Taste, maybe not so much. It depends on the tree, but like you say, trees, we tend to think of trees as being generic. Oh, those are oaks, those are aspens, those are birch trees. Every tree is unique, just like a human being.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.
At the Pretoria Farm Market in South Africa, there's a remarkable coffee shop using a simple and effective method of visual communication. UNN Field Messenger Elsie shows us around this shop.
Good morning. It's Elsie Meyer, Field Messenger from South Africa, Pretoria. And I'm on the Pretoria Boeremark It's a farmer's market, a big one who ran for many years, and people sell stuff they make, vegetable and fruit that come from the farms, lovely cheeses. There are many different places on the Buddha map, but I want to show you this exceptional store. It's a coffee shop and it's run by people who are deaf. And they have very interesting ways for us to understand them. Here is the system where you order your coffee. The warm drink, and you take the colored token that indicates whether you want a cappuccino, americano, cafe latte, 5 rose tea. That's the tea in South Africa. Here are the cold drinks. And they sell lovely German salami. There's the facility where you pay. You just put your token down and they understand what you want to buy. They ring it up. And there at the back you see the lady waiting for her coffee to be served. Thank you for watching. And I'm signing off from Pretoria.
Mental health services around the world are stretched thin, and the demand has never been higher. Now, many volunteers without formal psychiatric training are stepping in to fill the gaps. This approach, known as task shifting or task sharing, is gaining traction as mental health systems struggle to keep up.
For perspective, the World Health Organization estimates an average of just 13 mental health workers per 100,000 people worldwide. In low-income countries, that number drops to fewer than 2. Consider India, where only about 6,000 psychiatrists serve a population of 1.45 billion. That's according to a professor from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Clearly, the traditional approach can't meet the demand. That's where programs like Sangath come into the picture. Based in India, Sangath was an early pioneer in task sharing for mental health care. Their research-backed model trains non-specialists to provide mental health support. Another initiative, Atmiyata, takes a similar approach by preparing community volunteers to offer psychosocial support. With just 16 paid staff, Atmiyata manages a team of 800 volunteers who collectively help around 30,000 people every year. Studies have shown these programs are not only effective, but often lead to higher recovery rates than traditional psychiatric care.
Sangath began in 1996 when we started a child guidance clinic to serve children and families in Goa. But quickly we realized that our approach of a group of specialists offering services in a clinic, very similar to what you might see in a wealthy country, was never going to have impact. And this is because there was a massive unmet need for mental health care in India, and we had very few specialists. We needed to think in very different ways to reimagine how mental health care could be delivered in this country. And that is when Sangath's journey to design innovative ways to improve access to quality care for India began. Sangath has designed a range of different mental health interventions for prevention, for example, through changing school environments to promote young people's mental health, to supporting older adults who are struggling with chronic diseases, to treatment of mental health problems, for example, psychological treatments for harmful drinking and depression, to enabling inclusion for people with mental health related disabilities, for example, parenting interventions for children with autism and inclusive education in schools.
One of the strong foundations of our work at Sangath is collaborations. We collaborate at different levels with different types of people and organizations. But our most important collaboration is with community health workers through our task sharing work, which is basically empowering them to provide frontline mental health care, which is increasingly becoming recognized as an approach to increase access to mental health care across the whole world.
The success of Sangeeth has inspired the Rafa Mental Health Ministries program in Texas, which trains pastors and church members to support those in their communities dealing with mental health challenges. Also in the United States, the Confess Project, founded by Lorenzo Lewis in 2016, is revolutionizing mental health care in barbershops. Their mission is to train barbers to support the mental health of boys, men of color, and their families. In 2020, the Confess Project joined Harvard University for the Barbers Are Mental Health Gatekeepers campaign. The study interviewed 32 barbers to learn more about their views on mental health and community support. The findings showed just how important Black barbers are in their communities, building trust, addressing unmet mental health needs, and driving change.
The Confess Project of America is a national mental health movement, recognizes America's first mental health awareness movement, who historically have trained barbers, stylists, and frontline workers, over 5,000 of them, to be mental health advocates. We developed a curriculum that really utilizes a lot of the same pillars as DBT, which is a dialectical behavior technique, which a lot of therapists use in talk therapy. So we've utilized the framework of DBT and really brought that to a component of supporting marginalized and underserved folks. And so this curriculum looks as if a mental health first aid, to give an example, it gives an idea of how that looks, but it really focuses on marginal and underserved communities in returns of active listening is one of the pillars, validation is one of the pillars, positive communication is one of the pillars, and stigma reduction is one of the pillars.
On the other side of the globe, Zimbabwe's Friendship Bench program is another shining example of innovation in mental health care. It uses a simple, evidence-based approach called problem-solving therapy, delivered by trained community volunteers known as grandmothers. These grandmothers, who have no prior medical training, counsel patients in 6 45-minute sessions on wooden benches in discrete clinic areas. Since 2006, more than 600 grandmothers have been trained, helping more than 30,000 people in 2017 alone. The program has expanded beyond Zimbabwe to places like Malawi, Zanzibar, and even New York City, proving its global appeal. A common concern with non-specialists helping in this manner is the risk of inadequate treatment. However, experts say these programs don't replace formal mental health systems. They work alongside them. They help connect people to specialists when more advanced care is needed.
When we first started being a psychiatrist, I thought, well, we should call this the mental health bench. And that's what we called it. And guess what? Nobody wanted to come to the mental health bench. Until the grandma took me aside one day and they were like, we need to change the name. And so they came up with the idea of Friendship Bench.
Genius. Right? Just a little reframing.
Yeah, and so when we changed the name, suddenly everybody wanted to sit on the Friendship Bench because everybody wanted to talk to a grandma. One of our most seminal clinical trials is a publication in the Journal of the American Medical Association, a cluster randomized controlled trial which shows that 6 months after receiving therapy from a grandma, people were still symptom-free.
Various initiatives around the world have demonstrated that mental health interventions can be effectively delivered by trained and supervised volunteers. These programs are now reaching millions of people and have shown their effectiveness through numerous studies. Parenting these days feels like running a marathon with no finish line. Between work, errands, and your kids' ever-growing list of activities, It can feel impossible to keep up. And with schools cutting back on businesses, getting your kids where they need to be has turned into a logistical nightmare. That's why kid-focused ride-sharing apps are becoming popular. They're designed to help busy parents manage their jam-packed schedules by providing rides for kids when you simply can't be in two places at once. But are they really a solution you can trust?
Whether it's a quick trip to the grocery store, a ride to the airport, or a night out on the town, ride-sharing apps have become a reliable way to get to where you need to go with just a few taps on your phone. It's great for adults, but what about kids? Popular ride-sharing apps Uber and Lyft have policies that prevent them from accepting a ride from anyone under 18. In 2023, Uber introduced teen accounts in cities across the U.S. and Canada. This allows teenagers ages 13 to 17 to request rides with parental supervision. Parents set up a teen account linked to their own, where they can approve or monitor ride requests, track trips in real time, and set spending limits. Teens can book rides independently, but parents receive notifications and can review trip details. According to Uber's website, teens are always matched with a highly experienced driver who has passed a thorough background check that's done every year. But is that enough?
Uber just recently started advertising that they have Uber teen accounts. I think that's a problem. Here's why. I'm a lawyer and I represent a lot of victims of SA and CSA. And one thing that I know from the work that I do is that the opportunity to abuse is when you have one-on-one interactions. Already there are several cases against rideshare companies, actually many cases for SA of the passenger by the driver of the rideshare company. If you are putting a teen or a minor in a vehicle with a driver, that's only going to give the opportunity for that to happen even more so because now you have a vulnerable child. Now, I'm not saying that every rideshare driver has issues and is going to abuse, but one-on-one contact like that, especially in a car, allows the opportunity for someone to do so. And so I think that that is a problem. I think it's unsafe, and I think about it before doing that as a parent.
It makes sense. Just because someone has a good driving record or passed a background check within the last year doesn't make them qualified to be alone with your child. And what about younger children who need rides but aren't teens yet? School buses have become less of a go-to option over the years, mainly because districts are struggling to hire enough drivers and more students are going to schools further away from home. Whether or not school bus service is available depends on local and state governments, and lately, many have been cutting back. In fact, a Federal Highway Administration survey from early 2023 shows only 28% of U.S. students take the bus now, down from around 36% in 2017.
This year is first year middle school. And we're struggle busing it over here without a school bus. Like, literally. They have told me that my 11-year-old is on a waiting list to get a school bus to public school. We live over a mile from the school. They're not required in the state of Indiana to provide transportation for our children. So I'm on a waiting list. So we've got 4 kids ahead of us, and we've had 4 kids ahead of us since before school. It's not moved yet. And the school solution can he walk? Well, he walked to grade school, but it's like 3 blocks from our house. Middle school is over a mile from our house across a busy street during rush hour traffic. No, he cannot walk to school while I'm at work and while his dad's at work, and we just hope that he plays Frogger okay.
When kids can't get transportation to school, it causes a whole range of problems. Missing the bus or being unable to get a ride means they might miss important lessons, fall behind in class, and even struggle to keep up with homework. For parents, it's a major hassle, often leading to last-minute scrambling to find a ride or rearranging schedules. It can also impact kids socially, as missing school might mean they miss out on friendships, activities, and even school events. Without reliable transportation, some kids might even skip school altogether, which can affect their long-term education and future opportunities. Parents saw a major problem, so they stepped up to create a solution. Hop, Skip, Drive and Zoom are two popular kid-focused ride-sharing apps created by moms. Hop, Skip, Drive is all about getting kids to school, extracurricular activities, and appointments, and it teams up with schools and districts to help make sure these rides happen. They use care drivers who are specially trained to work with kids, and parents can track trips in real time, get notifications, and feel confident with a trusted driver network. Zoom, on the other hand, is more flexible, offering transportation for school runs, after-school programs, and even other family needs.
This mom started a $1.3 billion company based on her school buses being unreliable. Her kids weren't picked up on time or dropped off on time. It was messing with her work life. So it's called Zoom, and it's an AI-backed electric school bus service. It started as a self-funded Uber, like kind of chauffeuring kids to school with a fleet of vetted private drivers. She was seeing a lot of demand and success with this model because the parents weren't satisfied with the bus transportation. And then she asked local schools to promote Zoom to parents, and instead the schools offered to enlist Zoom as privatized school bus fleet with electric vehicles and tracking abilities. So the differentiators of this business is, one, they're all carbon neutral fleets. Two, they're multi-size vehicle fleets. So it says another place on their website that some fleet services will be a minivan because they're only picking up 5 students, and some will be a minibus. And then the integrated platform for safety and transparency. This is from Zoom's website. Imagine if bus drivers could report, monitor, and track safety incidents using cloud-based tools. Imagine if parents and districts had visibility into what takes place on the bus. Secure onboard cameras can provide an additional pair of eyes where necessary and appropriate. So would you want to upgrade this kind of bus system for your students?
In addition to some of those bigger names, smaller boutique ride-sharing services for kids are popping up in individual cities. These local services cater to specific neighborhoods and families, offering a more personalized experience with closer ties to the community. When choosing any of these options, consider factors like driver background checks, real-time tracking, and the ability to monitor rides. Look for a service that aligns with your family's schedule, budget, and comfort level. With the right choice, you can give your child the independence they need while having peace of mind knowing they're in good hands.
Today we explore the world of beavers and their incredible role as ecosystem builders. Join Field Messenger CJ as she shares a recent experience spotting a beaver in its natural habitat in the US.
Hi everyone, this is CJ, reporter for United Network News from Goffstown, New Hampshire. Today I just wanted to talk about beavers, also known as ecosystem builders. We were taking a Sunday drive a few weeks ago and we came across one pretty close up, so I just wanted to give you some fun facts first. They're mostly found in North America. They are the largest rodent. They grow between 50 to 80 pounds, and they and their teeth grow their entire lives. They have bigger heads, and their feet, their front paws are like little hands, and their hind legs in the back, they have these webbed feet that allow them to be really good swimmers, along with their flat, scaly tail that helps propel them in the water. So they're really good swimmers in the water, but they also spend some time on land. That's how they build their dams and their lodges. So they build dams by cutting down trees, mud, rocks, moving them around so it stops the flow of water in small streams and in like rivers, and it creates like a pond-like environment. So what it does is it creates new life. That's why they're called ecosystem builders, because they create these little ponds that invite new plants, algae, wood ducks, birds, fish to the area that weren't typically there before. They mate for life. They are vegetarians. Their babies are called kits, and they usually live with the parents for about 2 years, and they live in colonies, so they help each other out. In the winter, they spend a lot more time in their lodges, and they kind of submerge their food, their twigs and their branches underwater. They sleep on one side of the lodge as a family, and they eat on the other side, so they're very clean as well. They live to be anywhere from 13 to 20 years old. Their predators are usually like fox, eagles, coyotes that live in the areas. So they do spend a lot of time in water for that reason. They're just interesting creatures, and we were just lucky enough to catch one close up. And they do a lot of good things for the environment by creating new life and new ecosystems. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you have a great day. CJ from United Network News reporting from Goffstown, New Hampshire. Thank you.
Now it's your turn. Join our weekly meetings and become a field messenger. More information is available at our website, unitednetwork.earth. We're UNN, and we're taking back the news.